As an expert in your field, hopefully the ideas that you have aren't the problem, but it might be that the way your presentation sounds as a whole is. So this video is going to be what explores that. Let's talk about 3 ways that you can use sound differently in your speech such that it engages the auditory brain of the audience and they don't fall asleep. Let's talk first about what happens. At this point, you've done all the preparation work, you're ready for your presentation, and yet still when you're explaining your ideas, they're relatively clear, the argument is sound, everything is as you expect it to be, but you still see that people are nodding off for reasons beyond what you can understand. What exactly is happening? Well, here's the truth that you may not have heard before. And that is that your audience is processing sound before it's processing meaning and words. And the auditory system itself is looking out not just for the sound itself, but for contrast. And that is largely what helps us to stay awake, helps us to stay engaged. And so if you understand how the auditory system of your audience works, you increase the chances that you will actually engage it in a way that helps you be remembered, repeated, and understood. What may be happening at the moment is that you share your content, but you say that in a pretty regular voice, a pretty regular tone. And by the end, what happens is a process called habituation, which is where your auditory brain simply gets used to the sound. And then it figures, okay, this must not be important because it's not changing. Our brain loves change. It seeks change all the time. And that's what helps us to pay attention. And if this is happening, then you can be sure that slowly but surely, your audience is gradually tuning out. So what do you need to do? You need to stimulate the auditory brain with a little bit of contrast. And here are 3 specific ways that you can do that. The first is you are using your voice to talk the whole way through, but that's what everybody uses. Everybody uses their voice to give a presentation, kind of obvious. But there's so many sounds that you can use that can help reset your audience's attention instantly. Now, what was that? A click? It was a non-speech sound. You may be thinking, okay, but this is so subtle. What does this actually change? You would be surprised how subtle differences in your delivery make the greatest difference. Most people giving humdrum presentations don't even vary their voice, but when they do, all they use is their voice. I am not saying you need to use this every time you give a presentation. And suddenly this happened, and then that happened, then, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying have this in the back of your mind that what the auditory brain loves is contrast. And that's how it helps the brain pay attention. Keep that in mind. How can you vary the sound by changing it from being your voice to perhaps a click, perhaps a clap, perhaps a stomp, something that indicates, oh, there's variation. This is how we test the auditory system of babies when they're really young. And it turns out it works on adults too. So don't try and reinvent the wheel and say, oh, they're a bunch of executives. It doesn't work on them. The human brain is the human brain. So use what we already know because it works. So that's number 1. Using non-speech sounds. It could be a click, it could be a tap, it could be a stomp, whatever it is. Try and vary from voice to something else. The second is, tell us, Priscilla, what is the second way you can use sound in order to stimulate the auditory brain?
Well, Priscilla, this is a very pertinent question that I ask myself often. It is, how does one stimulate the auditory brain? Very good question. Very, very good question. And the answer is dialogue. It's dialogue. It's having someone else speak. It is not just saying this person said this. It is saying exactly what they said. And if you want, you can add an accent.
And scene. You get the picture. Now, the tool that you want to use as number 2 is dialogue. Instead of saying, when I asked the boss what his recommendation was, he told me that he usually goes for option A. Instead, say this. When I asked the CEO what he would go for, these were his exact words. Option A. No shadow of a doubt. Now, I'll give it to you. Some people won't want to use dialogue because it feels like you're acting a scene. And so it feels quite uncomfortable. It's like, well, am I here to act or am I here to give a presentation? And the answer is you're here to convey your information as best as possible. That's it. And dialogue helps do that because the truth is, we as humans think in narratives, and dialogue is one of the best ways to help someone form a narrative in their mind. When you directly relay what someone has said, then the person can build that story in their mind. And extra points if you can give them an accent. Just saying. Because going back to the auditory brain, an accent stimulates it even more because it's a different kind of sound that you're including in your presentation. Number 3, da, 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 that is music or melody. Now, this is another one that certain professionals might find uncomfortable. But again, take this from the perspective of the fact that the brain works how the brain works. It is wired for rhythm. It's wired for melody. It's wired for contrast. And so you want to make as much use of that as possible. And the third way that you do that is with something musical or melodic. It is so wired to hear rhythm and to remember it. And that's part of the reason that you remember songs far more easily than sometimes you just remember someone who spoke for 3 minutes. And so where you can, if possible, why not transition your slides or your headings to have some kind of jingle so that the audience knows, oh, this is a transition. Something, again, that signals to them, you can pay attention. This is important. These are elements that so many professionals overlook when in fact they are key and part and parcel of having your message be understood. Because if your message never actually reaches the part of it that's going to even try and compute it, then you've lost before you've even started. But if you consider these elements in order to signal to the brain, this is information that you might want to pay attention to and try and understand, then these are all going to help you do exactly that. If you follow these, you're going to be the kind of communicator that doesn't just give information, you actually design the attention that is needed for your information and communication to be understood. And let me tell you, you set yourself way apart from the crowd by doing exactly that. And in this day and age, you may now know that we live in an attention economy. So do what is in your power in order to maintain the attention of your audience by being deliberate, by understanding how the auditory brain works, and therefore increasing the chances that your message actually sticks in their brain. Because that ultimately is influence. Now, if you are speaking and making presentations where decisions are being made and you find that you are constantly being overlooked or forgotten, then you probably want to join the technical executive. The link is below. And in there, you're going to learn everything you need to know about increasing your level of influence so that it matches the years and years and years of expertise that you already have. So click the link below, and I hope to see you in there.